He wanted broken metal. He got a broken heart, alien slave to Soulmate. Primitive, you haven't met him yet. Captain Rourke Talon didn't come to the bazaar to be a hero. He needed a power core, plain and simple. His ship, the Vagrant, was dead in orbit over the junk planet of Icarus 9. A quantum shield core was the only thing keeping it from becoming permanent space debris. So when an old trader whispered about a crate of recovered alien tech up for silent bid, Rourke didn't ask too many questions. He just handed over his last credit chip. The crate arrived, heavy, sealed in dull blue plating scorched from atmospheric re-entry. Rourke expected the hum of machinery, maybe a coolant leak, maybe a half-fried power cell. What he didn't expect was her. The crate hissed open, chains rattled, and there she stood, tall, fierce, glowing faintly in the neon shadows of the market hangar. Her skin shimmered like burnished jade, and her eyes, deep violet and bright with rage, locked onto him the moment she blinked awake. Rourke took a step back. This isn't a reactor core. The auctioneer, a two-headed Grell merchant, just shrugged. Organic royal-grade Zerelian tech, very rare, very functional, guaranteed to warm your bunk or power your colony. Rourke scowled. She's not a thing. The alien woman straightened, despite the weight of the blackened chains looped around her wrists and ankles. Her voice was rough, yet regal. If you've bought me, human, at least have the decency to use my name when you throw me in your cargo hold. I am Celia Venar, matron ascendant of the High Throne. He blinked. Royalty? She rolled her eyes. Clearly fallen royalty. Rourke wasn't sure what he was supposed to do now. He needed a power core, not a political hostage. Or whatever this was. But as he stared at her, chained and proud and completely out of place, something in his gut twisted. He reached for the chain links. The auctioneer squawked. That's a biometric lock. No refunds if you short out your hand. But the second Rourke's fingers touched the cold alloy, the cuffs clicked and fell open with a whisper. Celia stumbled, catching herself with a hiss. What did you do? Rourke stared at his hand. I don't know. She looked at him strangely now, not with anger, with something else. Curiosity. The crowd dispersed. No one bid. No one interfered. Most didn't want to be caught in a dispute between royalty and a stubborn human freighter captain. Celia followed him back to the Vagrant. She said nothing during the walk through the metal corridors of Icarus Station, but her eyes never left him, not once. Once aboard, Rourke tossed his jacket, checked the engine readouts, and muttered curses about damn mystery crates. He didn't offer her food. He didn't even ask why she was sold. But she stood in the doorway of his quarters and spoke first. You are not what I expected. He grunted. You expected a slaver. I expected someone who wouldn't flinch when I looked at him like I wanted to break his nose. He raised a brow. I'm flattered. You shouldn't be, she snapped. Then, after a pause, but I suppose I should say thank you. No human has ever touched my restraints and lived. He looked at her again. Really looked. Not just the curves, though she had them. Not just the skin, though it seemed to glow softly in the cabin lights. It was her presence. Like she belonged on a throne, not in a crate. What were you doing in that box, he asked. I was supposed to be delivered, she said flatly. As a gift, to an enemy noble who thinks taming Shirelian royalty would elevate his bloodline. Rourke muttered a curse. And now they think you're mine. Celia's lips curled into a smirk. Are you frightened? Just thinking how much trouble I'm in. Good, she said, stepping closer. Then you might live long enough to get me off this rock. He narrowed his eyes. You have a plan? I had one, she said. Now I may need a new one, a human one. She brushed past him close enough that he caught her scent, something like starlight and danger, and left the room without another word. And Rourke, for all his experience, realized two things. One, he hadn't just bought trouble. Two, he wasn't. Sure, he wanted a refund. Captain Rourke didn't sleep that night. Not because of engine alarms or pirates or hull pressure issues. He was used to all that. No, this time it was the alien woman in his crew quarters, moving like a silent storm, unsettling everything without saying a word. Celia hadn't asked permission to stay. She just claimed the spare bunk, sat cross-legged, and began dismantling the stolen wrist shackles like a bored engineer. Rourke watched from the cockpit cam feed, trying not to look like he was watching. She was unlike any alien he'd ever met. Too confident, too elegant, too barely dressed. The fabric they'd dressed her in was ceremonial, tight across her hips, plunging over her chest, practically painted on. The chains had been part of the outfit, part of the control. But now that they were off, all he saw was a woman who didn't flinch, didn't cower, and didn't hide. At some point, she turned her head toward the camera, her violet eyes locking onto the lens like she knew exactly what he was doing. He switched the feed off. The next morning, she was in his engine bay. Rourke stood in the doorway, blinking in disbelief. Are you touching my reactor?" Celia didn't look up. It was humming incorrectly. "I recalibrated your compression coil." "You're welcome." He stepped in, frowning. "You know tech?" She gave him a look that said, "I know everything, idiot." Cerellian nobles are genetically modified to interface with most known systems: ships, drones, data nodes, mates. He paused. "That last one, don't think about it," she said quickly, standing and brushing, her hands on her thighs. "You wouldn't survive the experience. Wouldn't be the first time I nearly died for a pretty face." She snorted softly. "You flatter easily. Is that a human trait or just yours?" "Mostly mine," he said with a grin. She moved past him again, always past him, never around, like she feared him, like she expected him to watch, and he did. She wasn't just beautiful, she was fascinating. Every gesture was purposeful, every breath calculated, but there were cracks in her armor. He saw them when she thought he wasn't looking. Late that night, he caught her sitting on the cargo ramp, knees drawn up, staring at the stars with a blank expression. Her hair fell in waves down her back and her shoulders were tense, like she was holding in a scream. He approached quietly. "You okay?" She didn't look at him. "Your sky smells different." He sat beside her, careful to keep his distance. "That's Icarus 9 for you. Filters everything through sulfur vents and broken dreams." She let out the smallest laugh. "You speak like a poet." "I'm just tired." She was quiet a while longer. Then, "They killed my bondmate before the auction." Rourke didn't respond. He didn't know what to say. She finally looked at him, really looked. "I don't want your pity, human." "You won't get it," he said. "But if you're gonna be here, you're not a prisoner. You're crew. That means I don't leave you behind and I don't treat you like cargo." She blinked once, slowly. "I've never been crew." "You are now," he said, and offered his flask. She took it, sniffed it, then drank. Her eyes widened. "What is this?" "Earth whiskey. It tastes like engine degreaser and fire. You get used to it." She handed it back, lips glistening, and said something he hadn't expected. "I'm starting to understand why some species fall for humans." He coughed. "What?" "You have charm and depth. You're unrefined, but you're real." She leaned closer and suddenly he could feel the heat of her body, the soft glow of her skin. "I was bred to resist emotional bonding," she whispered. "But you make me forget the programming." He stared at her. "That a compliment?" "It's a warning." Then she kissed him. Not soft, not slow, hungry, and when she pulled away, breathless, she stood and walked back into the ship, leaving him stunned and alone under the alien stars. "Primitive?" he muttered. "Hell. She hasn't even seen the rest yet." Rourke couldn't focus the next day. Not on the nav charts, not on the fuel stabilizers, not even on the broken coffee dispenser he kept meaning to fix. All he could think about was that kiss. Celia hadn't mentioned it since. In fact, she was acting like nothing had happened. wandering the ship like royalty, slumming it with the locals. But Rourke wasn't built to ignore things, especially not when they made his blood run hot and his thoughts turned to dangerous places. He found her in the galley, standing barefoot and regal, sipping tea like she owned the ship. "I'm still thinking about last night," he said, blunt. As always, she didn't flinch. "Good. I meant for you two." Rourke folded his arms. "So what was that? Just a thank you for the hospitality kiss?" "No," she said, swirling her cup. "That was a 'your pheromones are destabilizing.' My resistance protocol kiss," he blinked. "Is that better or worse than just liking me?" She tilted her head, eyeing him like a curious specimen. "It's complicated, Celia," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not a science project." "No," she whispered, eyes narrowing slightly. "You're worse. You're unpredictable. Your body chemistry is activating neural patterns I was genetically coded to suppress. You're saying I short-circuited you?" "I'm saying you hacked me," he let out a low chuckle. "Guess I should have worn gloves." That made her smile. Just a little. But behind her amusement, Rourke saw it. The tension in her jaw, the tightness in her grip on the teacup. She was afraid, not of him, but of what she felt around him, and she wasn't used to fear. He softened. "I know I'm not your type." "You're not anyone's type," she replied, deadpan. "Ouch. But that's not the problem," she added. "The problem is, my body wants more, and my mind is starting to agree." He raised a brow. "So stop resisting." She set the cup down. "You don't understand, Rourke. My species designed me to bond only with Xerelian males. For politics. For survival. Not for..." Her voice lowered. "This. Maybe evolution has a sense of humor." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe humans were never supposed to be part of our equation." He stepped closer, now inches from her. "Too late." Her breath caught. She looked up, lips parting, eyes glowing faintly with bioenergy. "If I let this happen," she whispered, "there's no going back." "I wasn't planning to," he said. The second kiss wasn't rough. It was slow, searching. Her fingers tangled in his shirt. His hand found the curve of her lower back. The hum between them became a quiet thunder, echoing in his bones, and when she pulled away this time, her voice was smaller, vulnerable. "I haven't felt wanted like this in a long time." He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's your people's mistake, not mine." That night, she didn't go to her bunk, and neither did he. In the warmth of the crew cabin, under the soft starlight filtering through the viewport, two bodies that should have been incompatible learned just how well they fit. Her skin glowed with every touch. His breath came faster as her hands explored him like ancient tech rediscovered. At one point, she whispered, "You're bigger than Xerelians." He grinned. "You say that like it's a problem." "It's not," she gasped. "It's very much not." The hours blurred. There were laughs, moans, quiet words, loud ones. Even the ship's old wiring seemed to pulse in rhythm with them. When it was over, they lay tangled in sweat and breath and new understanding. Celia placed her hand over his chest. I think I just imprinted." Rourke blinked. "That, like bonding?" "It's worse," she murmured. "It's permanent." He kissed the top of her head. "Then I guess you're stuck with me." She smiled. Primitive, but effective. And in the silence that followed, with the stars spinning slowly beyond the hull, neither of them wanted to be anywhere else. Rourke woke up to the scent of ozone and something floral. It wasn't his ship. It was her. Celia lay beside him, one leg draped over his hip like she owned the territory. Her skin, that ever-glowing emerald shimmer, pulsed gently with her breathing. He could feel her heartbeat through the skin-to-skin contact. Rhythmic, steady, powerful. So of course the moment couldn't last. Intruder proximity alert. The ship's AI chirped through the overhead speaker like it had no concept of timing. Rourke groaned and rolled out of bed, grabbing the nearest pair of pants and a sidearm. Celia didn't even flinch. She sat up slowly, bare shoulders gleaming in the cabin lights. "Should I be worried?" "Only if you want breakfast before a gunfight," he muttered, tapping into the ship's cams. "Two hostiles, armor suits, breach in the airlock." Her mood shifted instantly. Slave trackers. "You sure? They've got that walk, like they own anything chained." She stood, graceful and completely unashamed of her nudity. Rourke almost forgot the threat for a second, but then she reached for her discarded wrap, securing it like ceremonial armor, and something in her posture changed. She wasn't soft anymore. She was a blade. By the time they reached the corridor, the invaders were already making their way toward engineering. Rourke motioned for cover. "You take left, I'll go right. Don't kill them unless they make you." Celia smirked. "I only kill if they're slow." They struck in unison. Rourke fired a stun burst that cracked one attacker's visor, sending the armored brute crashing into a bulkhead. Celia moved like lightning, her fingers glowing with that same bioenergy she used to interface with tech. Only, this time, she used it to overload the second invader's suit. Sparks exploded, and the man dropped, twitching. Rourke stepped over him. "Okay, remind me never to fight you." "You couldn't win," she said sweetly. They tied the two unconscious bodies up in the storage bay. Rourke leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "This is what your life looks like, huh?" She sat beside him. "My life ended when the Empire fell. This is survival." "Not anymore," he said. "You're not alone now." She looked at him. Something softened in her eyes. "Why are you like this?" "Like what?" "You care, even when it costs you." "Bad habit," he muttered. "Didn't get it bred out of me like some of the fancy species did." "You think I'm fancy?" "I think you're terrifying and gorgeous and probably smarter than me in 5 languages." She leaned her head on his shoulder. 6, actually. Rourke let out a tired laugh. "Figures." There was silence for a moment. Then she whispered, "They'll come back. The slavers. My family's bloodline is worth a fortune on the dark grid. They won't stop." "Neither will I," he said. Celia turned her face toward him, her voice a low hum. "You're not afraid." "Not of them." "Of what then?" He swallowed. "Of how much I already care." She stilled. Then, in a tone so soft he almost missed it. "That's exactly what I was afraid of too." Later that night, after repairs, after silence, after too much whiskey, Rourke found himself staring at the stars again. Celia slipped in beside him without a word. Her hand found his, fingers laced. "Primitive," she whispered, resting her head against him again. He smiled, eyes still on the stars. "But somehow, exactly what you need?" She didn't answer, with words, just leaned in and kissed him slow, deep, like someone choosing not just a moment but a future. And Rourke, for the first time in a long time, felt like he'd finally stopped running, even if the galaxy hadn't. Rourke always believed the universe didn't give you peace. It gave you problems and expected you to solve them with duct tape, sarcasm, and a sidearm. But Celia? She made him believe peace might actually be a person, until the bounty hit. It wasn't subtle. Nothing ever was in the outer fringes. One minute they were refueling at a dusty trade hub orbiting a dying sun, and the next, Rourke's face lit, up every holoboard in the sector. Alongside his was hers, though her name was redacted, just listed as asset, high-value genetic material. "Guess someone misses you," Rourke said, eyes on the bounty notice. Celia stared at the screen, jaw tight. "That's not a bounty, that's a message." "What kind?" "The kind that ends in chains. Or fire." The crew behind the fuel station started murmuring. 2 reptilian dockhands were already reaching for their comms. Rourke grabbed Celia's hand. "Time to move." They ran, weaving through steam. Vents, rusted corridors, and back alleys that stank of engine grease and regret. Behind them, someone yelled, "There's the human. Full reward if we bring him in breathing." Celia snapped, "So dead is still on the table." "Welcome to being famous," Rourke muttered. They made it back to the ship. Barely. A bolt ricocheted off the hatch frame as it slammed shut behind them. Rourke launched them into space with no clearance and all afterburners. The station's defense system tried to lock on, but the old ship still had a few tricks left. They punched into hyperspeed with seconds to spare. Once safe, Celia stared at the viewport, her arms crossed. "They want me for breeding stock." Rourke winced. "That's graphic. My genome can supposedly restore purity to the Empire's bloodline. They don't care about my mind, my soul, just my ovaries and title." He stood, walked up behind her, and gently placed a hand on her waist. "They'll never touch you. You can't promise that." He turned her to face him. "No, but I can make it very, very expensive for them to try." Her breath caught. "You're serious." "I've never been more serious in my life." Her voice broke just a little. "I'm scared, Rourke." He leaned in, resting his forehead to hers. "Then we'll be scared together. But we don't run anymore, we fight." That night, their passion burned hotter than the ship's reactor core. Not frantic, feral, not desperate, devoted. Every kiss felt like a vow. Every touch, a promise. Celia didn't just surrender to him. She chose him over fear, over fate, over bloodlines and duty. And Rourke, he memorized every sound she made, every tremble, every curve, as if he needed proof that this goddess of fire and fury was his. After, lying tangled in sweat-damp sheets, Celia whispered, "You know what's ironic?" Rourke raised an eyebrow. "That you're royalty and I'm a glorified space janitor." She smirked. "That, and the genetic studies were wrong." "About what?" "Human compatibility. Our DNA isn't just compatible with mine." Her eyes gleamed. "It's superior." He blinked. "Wait, what?" She shifted onto him, straddling his lap, her voice low and wicked. "I did a scan earlier. Your equipment isn't just big, it's biologically disruptive. You're triggering hormone surges I didn't even know my species could produce." Rourke grinned like a man who just won the lottery with his pants off. "So, I'm literally breaking science. You're evolving it." His hands gripped her hips. "You say the sweetest things." They didn't sleep much after that. But sometime before dawn cycle, between kisses and whispered plans, Rourke said something he never thought he'd say again. "I think I want a future with you." Celia froze. Then slowly she smiled. "Then let's build one no Empire can touch." The next morning, Rourke stood at the helm, shirtless, bruised, sipping awful rehydrated coffee and staring at a blinking star chart. Beside him, Celia, glowing like a queen after war and worship, leaned casually against the console, her fingers dancing over coordinates. The tension between them hadn't faded overnight. It had evolved, from danger to determination. "They'll hunt us forever, you know," she said, voice calm, chin lifted like someone born to issue ultimatums. "Let 'em try," Rourke muttered, running a hand through his messy hair. "They send slavers, I send body parts back COD." She tilted her head. "You've got this whole brutal protector thing down. Very primitive." Her lips twitched. "I am primitive," he said, smirking. "You've seen it, felt it." That earned him a slow, knowing look that would have made a less seasoned man collapse. "Oh, I felt it," she said, still sore, still impressed. Rourke nearly dropped his coffee, but then she turned serious. "We can't just keep running. Sooner or later we make a stand." He nodded. "I've been thinking the same." They pored over old navigation maps, hidden sectors, dead zones, abandoned colonies. One name pulsed in red, Tornox 4, a once thriving outpost lost to plague and pirate raids decades ago. No one went there now, which made it perfect. Celia studied it with narrowed eyes. Atmospheres thin, toxic in pockets. Terraforming tech would be needed. "Got an idea," Rourke said, leaning closer. "What if we didn't just hide there? What if we built something?" She blinked. "Like what?" "A home. A stronghold. A place for outcasts, runaways, Hybrids. A future. You said it yourself. We're compatible. What if this is just the beginning? She stared at him, and in that moment, Celia, the last daughter of a fallen empire, saw not just a human, but a mate, a partner, a king to her fire-born bloodline. You want to build a civilization? With me? I want to build a family, he said, steady and sincere. And we're going to need a place that doesn't care where you're from, just what you're made of. Celia blinked, heart racing. Not from fear, not even from lust, but from something far rarer. Hope. Then let's build it with fire. They kissed like warlords sealing a treaty, with teeth and tongue and promises unspoken. Then they got to work. They refit the ship for long-term colonization, rated black, market labs for terraforming capsules, and called in every favor Rourke had ever earned, and a few he'd stolen. In every backwater bar, he whispered the same thing. There's a place for people like you, if you're brave enough to fight for it. And people came. Misfits, escaped hybrids, engineers with bounties, one-eyed smugglers who'd loved too hard and lost too much. All of them united by one idea. That love, true, fierce, impossible love, could be the spark of something greater than survival. And at the center of it all, Rourke and Celia, bonded by touch, blood, and battle. She wasn't just his queen anymore. She was his cause. And for the first time in either of their lives, the stars weren't something they ran through. They were something they ruled beneath. Together. 6 months later, the sky above. Tornox 4 was no longer silent. Where once there had been only dust storms and ruins, now rose scaffolds of steel, glowing biodomes, and watchtowers armed with railguns salvaged from a forgotten war. The first settlers called it New Bastion. Celia called it ours. She stood atop a half-finished platform, the wind catching her hair like a dark comet trail, watching workers argue over where to install an atmospheric converter. Rourke climbed up. Behind her, grease on his hands and sweat on his brow, shirtless again, as always. I told them, east side gets the sunlight. Plants need that. They didn't listen? She asked. He shrugged. They will, or they'll get assigned waste filtration duty. Celia smiled, but her eyes were elsewhere, tracking a scout ship landing just beyond the ridge. That's the 4th arrival this week. Yeah, Rourke said, stepping beside her. People are starting to believe this place is real, that maybe love and rebellion can share the same roof. She turned to him, brushing a smudge of oil from his cheek. This place isn't built on rebellion. It's built on you. Us. He corrected softly, catching her wrist. Her breath hitched. You still feel it, don't you? Every time you walk into a room. He leaned in. Every time you moan my name. She shivered, but her smirk returned. Careful, Captain, you're talking to a royal. He pulled her closer until her body pressed flush to his. There's only one kind of royalty in my bed, and she begs. Celia's laugh turned into a gasp when he kissed her. Not soft, not sweet, possessive, hungry, like he could still never get enough of her, and maybe he never would. Later that night in the newly built command dome, surrounded by flashing schematics and glowing Terratech panels, they laid together on a padded floor mat, limbs tangled, half-naked beneath a flickering star map. Celia rested her head on his chest, tracing the scar near his collarbone. Do you ever wonder how different things could have been if I hadn't been sold in a crate? Rourke chuckled. If that crate had held anything else, I'd probably still be in debt and drunk on a junk freighter somewhere. You still drink. Yeah, but now I do it with royalty. She tilted her head up. I never thought a man could touch me the way you do. Not just physically. Her fingers slid under the blanket, brushing low. Although, that still ruins my equilibrium, he grinned. Biological superiority. Told ya. But then she grew quiet. You know what I've been thinking about, she whispered. Rourke turned to her, serious now. Tell me. My people had protocols for procreation. Cold, selective, clinical. You just kissed me and made my body rewrite half of known science. Should I apologize, he asked. No, she said, eyes glowing softly. You should kiss me again, and again, until every last part of me forgets what I used to be. He did. And as her breath trembled and her nails dug into his skin, he knew. Whatever kingdom she had lost, whatever empire had tried to break her, this was her coronation. Their union wasn't just rebellion. It was evolution, love, lust, and legacy, written into stardust and sweat, and they were just getting started. The storm hit just before dawn. Crimson lightning laced the skies above New Bastion, and winds howled through the half-built towers like the ghosts of failed worlds. But inside the command dome, everything was still, quiet, warm. Celia lay curled against Rourke's chest, her fingers resting on the edge of his collarbone, where his pulse beat steadily beneath calloused skin. She stirred, eyes glowing faintly, even in sleep, and whispered, "The soil's blooming, I felt it last night." Rourke didn't even open his eyes. "Told you that fertilizer blend would work." Primitive human gut bacteria strikes again. Celia laughed softly. "You really think you're the secret to interstellar farming?" "No," he muttered, cracking one eye open. "Just the secret to you." Her hand slid down to his stomach. "You might be more right than you think." He blinked. That was suspiciously cryptic. She looked up at him, eyes gleaming like starlight over emerald seas. "The medbay confirmed it this morning." "Rourke, I'm pregnant." Silence. Except for the wind battering the dome walls and the slow smile breaking across Rourke's usually grim face. "You sure? I'm not some backwater princess who confuses bloating with a miracle," she said dryly. He laughed once, then twice, then grabbed her face and kissed her like it was the last sunrise in the galaxy. "Holy hell," he whispered into her lips. "A baby. A hybrid," she added. "The first ever between our species. The medical AI couldn't even categorize half the markers. Your DNA is stubborn." "Yeah," he grinned. "Gets that from his mother." Her eyebrows lifted. "His?" "Just a guess," he said, brushing hair from her cheek. "But I'll be happy either way, as long as it's got your eyes and none of my temper." "And what if they inherit your biological advantages?" she teased, curling closer. "That might make dating difficult." "We're raising a warrior," Rourke murmured. "They won't date. They'll conquer." They held each other, heartbeat to heartbeat, long past sunrise. Word spread quickly. First through New Bastion, then through the colonies, then the whole sector. The Queen of Fire and the human captain had created something impossible, a living symbol of unity, love, and unrestrained rebellion against an empire that told them they couldn't be together. Ships began arriving not just with settlers but with believers, alien couples, outcasts, dreamers. Every one of them hungry for a home where love mattered more than bloodlines, where families weren't built in labs but forged through sweat, struggle, and choice. They expanded the colony, built homes, schools, biodomes that pulsed with glowing, roots and gravity-neutral nurseries. And at the heart of it all, the old command dome where the Queen still whispered star maps into her child's ear, and the captain still fixed broken wiring with one hand while holding his lover with the other. On the night their child was born, under a sky laced with twin moons and a curtain of solar winds, the entire colony went silent. The birth wasn't loud or messy or even painful. It was powerful. Celia's glow lit the chamber as if the cosmos bent toward her womb. The baby emerged with skin that shimmered between human tan and radiant gold, and eyes that pulsed with both rage and wonder. Rourke held them, stunned. The child gripped his finger. Tight. Strong. "You feel that?" he whispered to Celia, overwhelmed. "That's our future." "No," she whispered back, exhausted but beaming. "That's the future of everyone." Years later, The tale of the captain and the queen would be told across star systems, not as a legend but as history. The man who bid on salvage and found a soulmate in chains. The woman who was born into royalty but chose freedom and love instead. Together, they built a home, then a world, then a legacy, and in every child born. On Tornox 4, in every hybrid family that dared love without permission, their fire lived on. They were human and alien, warrior and sovereign, lover and mate. But more than that, they were proof that sometimes the galaxy doesn't need more empires, just a man who touches the chains and a woman who dares to believe he's worth her crown. The end.